Welcome to this Innovation Forum webinar discussing the social impacts of circular economy transition in the apparel sector. I'm Ian Welsh and I'll be your host for the next hour or so. Circularity has the potential to reshape industries, reduce waste and regenerate nature. But when it comes to the social side, is it advancing a just transition or does it risk deepening global inequality? We have a great panel to lead the discussion and to try and answer those questions. We have Carmen Gama, who's Director of Circularity at clothing brand Eileen Fisher, Paul Kerssens, COO and co-founder of United Repair Centre, and Dr. Hakan Karaosman, Associate Professor at Cardiff University and co-founder of FReSCH. My welcome to you all, and my thanks to Innovation Forum's Niamh Campbell for bringing us all together today. I'll turn to the panel shortly, but we do want to hear from you. So please be thinking about points and questions that you would like me to put to our panel and write them into the Q&A box on your Zoom window. Please note your name and organisation when putting your question. You can, of course, like others' questions by clicking the thumbs up, and the more likes, the greater chances are that I will put that question to the panel. And do try to keep your questions brief, please. Okay, let's get cracking. Welcome, panel. So, Carmen, let me come to you first. Please start us off by outlining Eileen Fisher's circular economy initiatives. Carmen.
Hi, Ian. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to share about our circular initiatives. So I'm the director of circular design and actually been at the company for almost 10 years. And my job here is to figure out what to do with all of the damage inventory that comes back through our take back program. So today, I'm just going to give an overview of our circular initiative, the Eileen Fisher Renew Take Back Program. I'm going to talk about what we do with those garments and then what are our key partnerships that help us grow this program year by year. So starting with the Take Back Program, it started in 2009. It started very organically, like a lot of projects here in Eileen Fisher start. We did a closet sale for Eileen's personal clothes because we wanted to gather funds for the foundation. Right, we wanted to have some money to support the women's programs for the Eileen Fisher Foundation. So it started very organically, and then we very quickly realized that the customers love that secondhand garments. So a couple of years later, in 2013, we opened the program to our customer base, right? So we asked them that we wanted to buy back all of the garments that they no longer wanted. And since 2009, we've collected over 2.6 million garments. And that number really changes by the second. The program started in the foundation, but in 2015, the company bought the Eileen Fisher program, and now we are called Eileen Fisher Renew. So how does this work? We basically buy back any Eileen Fisher garment. It can be a garment, shoes, accessories. We give you a $5 coupon, and then the customers can send it to any of the Eileen Fisher stores or send it directly to our warehouse, which is located in Irvington, New York. Right, that's kind of like the foundation on the basis on how the program works. What do we do with these garments is that we have kind of like three general buckets for those garments. The first one is like 50% of these garments are resellable, 30% are damaged, and 20% are donations. So for the resellable garments, what we do is that when they come to our Irvington location in New York, we have a group of sorters who deem if it's either sellable or donation or damage, right? But for the resellable, our standards are pretty high. So basically the garments have to be like new. We do have like tier pricing. So maybe the lower price points are like, slightly faded or like very minor worn marks. So for that, we work with local dry cleaners, eco dry cleaners who support on a weekly basis clean our garments so we can resell them in some of the Eileen Fisher stores or our re-commerce Eileen Fisher Renew. For larger bulk dry cleaning, we work with a company that is called Hamster. So they do on a monthly basis, they do bulk cleaning. And then the company that supports our re-commerce is Trove. We've been working with them for a couple years now. Actually, for a lot of years now, and they're located in Pennsylvania. So once we receive those clean garments, we send them to their warehouse in Pennsylvania, and they handle all of the fulfillment, which is like photography, customer service, customer returns. So that's kind of like the business of a resale program. We, on a monthly basis, we receive around 25,000 units from our customers. So that's a lot of garments. So that's what we do for resale. And then for the donations, we've been working for like almost 3 years with Souls for Souls. So for that, I mean, these are garments that they are deemed don't meet the criteria for resaleability, but they're not damaged. So think about like fading or like peeling or like tiny holes, tiny stains, that things that can people still wear. So that they come, we don't clean them. They just come on like bi-monthly basis and then come and they pick up from us. And then for our damage inventory, that's kind of like my world, damaged clothes. We have 3 general buckets, right? The first one is what we call a special collections. So these are like capsule collections that we do on a yearly basis. And we have 3 categories. We have over dye, we do mending, and we do remanufacturing. Remanufacturing is the act of deconstructing the garment and using it as fabric to make entirely new clothes. And for each one of these categories, we have different partnerships. So for the over dye, we work with a company that it's called Botanical Colors in Seattle, that they do natural dye for our garments. So think about all of our white linen cotton garments that we send them to be, extending the life cycle of these garments. Then for mending, we kind of like just, for mending and remanufacturing, we have the internal team, the product development team flexes to a factory. So I work very closely with them to kind of like create these collections from deconstructing all the way to mending and, making them. And we sell these collections at a couple Eileen Fisher channels on the stores, ef.com and our renew.com too. And then the next bucket of solution is fiber to fiber recycling. And that's the one that I'm very excited about because this one truly has a potential to make a huge impact in the industry, because if we do it, we can show and we can help build the path for the other brands to follow. So think about all of the 100% wool, linen, cotton spandex. Those get sorted out for fiber to fiber recycling. And this is about 49% of our inventory, damage inventory gets allocated for that. And then we have our wool goes to Italy with our partner Roberto, which they churn these garments, mechanical recycling into new yarn. We have done a sweater last year, and we're going to start doing this on a yearly basis. And then our cotton has gone to Guatemala with our partner, the New Denim Project. They mechanical recycle our cotton spandex garments, and then they made the yarn that then was sent to our partner in Peru, who does Eileen Fisher's organic cotton sweaters. So that was also a beautiful sweater that we did last year. And then for linen and silk, we send them to our partner Halitex in Spain, where they do also mechanical recycling of these garments. So the reason why we're being able to do fiber recycling from our own garments is because we have 3 main things. One, we have the quality of the materials, right? Think about the monofibers, wool, cotton, linen. And then we have the volume, right? We get so many garments back from our take back program that allow us to do these, turn these garments back into our own yarn. And 3, we've been building these partnerships way before we started doing fiber recycling. So these partners, we were buying already recycled yarns from them previous to these. So they know us and they trust us. So they were willing to jump on the boat with us. So that's fiber recycling. And the last solution is downcycling. So that's about 48% of the damage inventory gets allocated to downcycling, which hurts my, pains my heart, but it's not trash. So we work with a local partner in New York, New Jersey, where they come also on a bi-monthly or tri-monthly basis, and then they do shoddy for the automobile and build industry. So those are all of the initiatives that we do on our circular Eileen Fisher Renew Take Back program. And, as we're talking about, our social consciousness team is truly helping us vet each one of these vendors to see if they truly meet our standards and our values, right? Because this team vets the whole supply chain, but we're starting to think about also the post-consumer supply chain who supports our circular initiatives, right? So they're going to be holding under the same standards as our first life garments. So that was a lot of information, but that's it.
Thank you. Fascinating. Thanks very much indeed for taking us through all of that. So can I ask, what sort of how big is the business in terms of turnover? What sort of money are you making using these taken back garments?
Well, unfortunately, that's numbers that I don't have or I can't share. I can share any other statistics, but that.
Well, come on, it was worth an ask, wasn't it? You don't ask, you don't get.
Yes.
Thanks very much indeed. Yeah,
But I do, can I say something?
sure.
The resale program does contribute to Eileen Fisher's bottom line. So it's a profitable part of the business. Yes.
Excellent. Well, that's what really we're trying to get to. So, I mean, it is a profitable part of the business. And there's a clear business. I guess there's two sides to it. There's like in the business incentive in terms of it's adding to your bottom line. Plus, it's part of your sort of your brand, isn't it? I mean, this is all part of the kind of part of that for you. So, I'm wondering, in terms of the drivers for the business, then, which of those is it that's key, or is it the combination of the two?
It's the combination of the two, really. We started the Take Back program organically, right? We didn't start it to really make like big money or like kind of like change the whole system, how we work internally. But as we evolve, we saw the business opportunity, and that's what we've been trying to do. We're trying to integrate every part of all of the solutions that I told you to streamline internally with the Eileen Fisher model. So, it just becomes like one.
Great. Okay, thanks very much. Loads to come back on there, but really thank you very much for giving us an excellent example of what can be done. Paul, let me turn to you. Perhaps give us a sentence or two on the work of the United Repair Centre, and I'd be interested to hear from you how partnerships and brand partnerships can develop to enable circular solutions. Paul.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ian. Hi, everybody. So I'm Paul. I'm super happy and inspired to be here because when we started our company a good few years ago, our idea was partially inspired on Eileen Fisher's pioneering work for so many years. So I'm honored to be on this panel talk with you. But indeed, a little bit about United Repair Centre. So we consider ourselves to be social pioneers on a mission to repair the clothing industry. By putting people first, one garment at a time. And we try to really offer a reuse solution to brands and retailers by offering repair programs, renew programs, and remake programs. So repair would really be repairing end consumer garments that then are also returned back to the consumers. Renew is something that Carmen just talked about. So really for the purpose of re-commerce, whether it's take-back programs, online returns or unsold stock, we refurbish them and make them ready for resale again. And then the remake piece is really indeed taking apart old garments and making something new on this. And with these services, we really feel that in the whole R letter of circularity, we want to focus on the reuse piece. We feel that up till now, a lot of attention within the fashion and the clothing industry has gone to recycling. But from just a pure logical perspective, we feel that reuse should be coming and considered first before we consider recycling. And then with this mission, we really try to establish three main goals because we're a social enterprise. So our first goal is that we want to create jobs for people that are distanced to the labor market. Secondly, we want to save textile waste. And third, and this is also getting into your question, Ian, we want to do this at scale. And not only we want to do this at scale because we truly want to repair the clothing industry, and we can only do that when it's at scale, but also because all the partners we work with, so the clothing brands, they also operate at scale. So they operate internationally with big numbers. So we've created a system where we can make it easy for brands to hop on the reuse journey with us without too much headache and hassle. And from that perspective, we are building up a model that is not only financially beneficial, but has also other benefits in terms of people impact and planet impact. And from the circularity perspective, we really want to make it as local as possible. Whereas many brands or many companies might, again, from the linear perspective, think we'll collect all the items, whether it's repairs or renews, we consolidate it in shipments, we'll ship it off to countries that have lower costs of labor, we'll do it there and then we'll ship it back again. We feel that the circular economy needs to be local, not only because of the proximity to the end consumer and reducing emissions and cost of shipping, but also because we want to create impact, social impact local, thus having people in our local proximities and in local environment actually repairing the garments in the Western European countries where we are based. This obviously comes with a challenge because in Western European countries, the craftsmanship and the skills of clothing manufacturer and repairing have for the past decades been outsourced and offshore to countries far away. So again, we've invented this social program where we find people that are distanced to the labor market. This could be people with refugee backgrounds or people with no skills at all, and we train them or reskill them to be able to do repairs with us. And that way we can really create local impact and include these people that otherwise would not be part of the workforce, maybe due to that not be a part of the local environment. And now we provide them jobs and they can have a purpose in life again in a safe environment. And this is also how we sort of approach our brands, right? So we want to make it as easy as possible for them, and then also create this business case for the reuse proposition that they can then offer to their brands. And because it's local, we often get the questions, but is it even beneficial for us? Can we make money out of this? And yes, we can. We now have approximately 25 brands on board, and we've built this system based also on our own digital platform where we can make these programs really efficient and basically purely financially, we can make it break even for brands or slightly profitable. But we also want to look at this from a holistic perspective, a holistic business case perspective, because there's also in the midterm, there's other benefits that are created through such programs, such as customer loyalty, maybe customer satisfaction. But there's also feedback loops to the product designs teams where we sort of collect all the data on the broken garments, and we can feed them back to the product design teams how they can optimize their design for circularity. And also because we create this impact and we collect all the data points, both from a social perspective and an environmental perspective, the brands can then use these data points for their compliance, and especially obviously in Europe with upcoming legislations with the right to repair or the eco design directive. These data points can then be used for their reporting purposes. Yeah, and then we enable brands to onboard on this reuse journey and make it a profitable business case. We've been now on this journey for 3 years with United Repair Center. And so far, we've created 60 jobs for people that are distanced to the labor market and that otherwise might not have had a job across both Amsterdam and London, where we are currently based. And what really drives us is with all these people, we currently have approximately 20 different nationalities working at our production floor. And these people all work perfectly together, no matter where their backgrounds are coming from, their religions. They all work nicely together. And for us, this is a part of our drive to build this company, because if you look at what's happening out there in the world currently, this coherence in our production floor really lifts us up. And we want to use this as an example also, again, to brands and all our stakeholders to showcase that we can actually make positive social impact happen.
Great, thanks very much. I was going to ask you a question. In fact, it's reflected in a question we've had in from our audience. So thanks very much for your questions already. How much do you take into account the potential negative impact on traditional manufacturing regions? Southeast Asia being an obvious one. In terms of typically quite a lot of end-of-life material is sent to those regions, and you talked about shipping is been a large part of this sort of process in the past. How much so how much impact do you take into account of the fact that inevitably there's going to be work and business that's being moved from those traditional areas to Amsterdam and London and places like that, as you mentioned?
Well, I think traditionally obviously the production of new garments is done in those countries. I don't see a lot of the repair and the refurbishment being shipped back. I think if we look at just Europe, that's my reference. Some of the companies that we talk to, they ship it out to Romania or Poland for the purpose of lower labor costs. But I think more so, if we don't save those clothings, they are then shipped again to the global south, whether it's Chile or Ghana. They end up, there are big economies set up around these secondhand clothing, but because on average the quality of garments is really decreasing, in the end, and also the amounts are just increasing massively. So this causes these massive textile waste mountains in Ghana. They end up in the sort of in the ecosystems there. So I feel that at this point there is like bottom line, there's only positive impact of doing these services locally.
Great, thanks, Paul. Again, lots to come back on there, and thanks. Questions are coming in thick and fast, so thanks very much, audience. Okay, Hakan, welcome, and thanks for your patience. Perhaps you can give us a little bit more insight then into the importance of a socially inclusive approach when developing circular economy practices. We've heard from Paul, we've heard from Carmen. So for you, what's the importance of a socially inclusive approach?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. So also thank you to Carmen and Paul for such insightful and inspirational thoughts. Actually, I'm hearing from both of you the term partnership and trust-based relationship, and this is really important for supply chain management. But I also want to take a step back and to talk about the system. So I have been investigating fashion supply chains for the last 14 years, luxury, fast fashion, and many other segments. So what I want to tell you is actually the business setting is quite challenging, and we cannot create or promote solutions without discussing and challenging the underlying business conditions. So number one, the fashion as a system is actually run by cost reduction strategies and efficiency. And then this creates supply chains that are really complicated. And to manage these complex supply chains that we have created for the business decisions that we are making, we are using top-down decision making with standardized tools and mostly third-party audits. But all of this creates long-term ecological, psychological, and physical consequences. So why I do say this, because workers must be at the center. And now, if we talk about circular economy, circularity is a paradigm shift. But we really have to be conscious about the fact that this must be a behavioral change. We cannot just promote technology as a lifesaver without discussing societal consequences. So what I'm trying to say here is actually we need to understand supply chains are socio-ecological systems. We need to involve everyone in this transition. So far, what I am seeing as a supply chain professor is the fact that transitions are mostly framed around innovation and technology, but we are ignoring societal consequences and we are ignoring social aspects. So we don't really talk about the human aspects of all of these transitions. Technology is a tool. What matters is how we will use the tool to create something for the greater good. So if I am trying to unpack a little bit here, short-term goal setting is important, but it always creates long-term unintentional consequences. So to prevent this, we need to understand how to really put people front and center. And just transition is the concept that we can actually utilize. Just transition is explaining how communities, supply chain stakeholders, and workers can be actually taking an active part in any sort of transitions. However, the fashion industry needs to understand one thing. Just transition requires three main principles. Interactions must be inclusive, decision-making must be plural and representative, and risks and benefits must be distributed. So what does this mean? If we are creating a circular strategy for self-interest or for profit maximization, then the consequences will be detrimental for society. But if we really want to create something for plural alternatives, then the governance structures will be inclusive, and then we will create something more, I will say, with the civil societies, more positive. I will be also putting lots of links to the chat box just to also give insights into our research to explain how plural just transitions can be executed. So if I bring you back to the circular economy landscape, human is at the center of everything, skills, capabilities. But also, this is going to the beautiful question you asked, Ian, to Paul about social ecological impact. We don't know because we don't have enough studies and we don't have the landscape. We don't know the supply chain landscape at the moment. The risk is we cannot frame circularity with global north-centric values and principles. We really need to understand the plural language and everybody's local perspectives, because also Carmen said something really interesting. And Paul also accentuated the importance of context-specific interventions, local values, context principles, and communities values and their ideas must be heard. So that's why we just cannot promote circularity without the people that will be impacted by these decisions. In practice, what does this mean? We really need to create strategies with the communities and with the workers that will be impacted. Now, also one risk that we are here, we need to acknowledge, informal sector will be at the center, but most of us, existing practice and existing policies, as well as research, think that informal sector is part of the regulated economy, which is not. We really need to put clear boundaries. Also, we need to understand new jobs will be created, new skills will be demanded, but what are those skills? We just cannot really shoehorn assumptions into this paradigm shift without creating these things with the communities. This might sound difficult, but actually, if you look at other sectors, many industries have gone through this and they have wonderful examples that can guide us. And I will put some links to the chat box for those that want to understand how to really create these transitions. But to me, decarbonization or circularity are the outcomes. If we really want to create a proper supply chain management practice and strategy, then the results will be decarbonized and just supply chains with good outcomes. So we really have to make sure purpose is clear, and purpose is not just for the brands or for one actor, but the purpose is for the greater good. And then this will enable us to orchestrate all these resources. And at the end, circularity or decarbonization will become outcomes of the system that we are creating and orchestrating with the people. Anyway, long story short, to me, inclusion and representation is everything. And whatever transition we are talking about, it must be plural and it must be for everyone, not just for the few. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Hakan. Just on the links, we will of course capture and share with everybody any links that you want to share, Hakan. The chat box is not actually live for the audience, just for your information. That's fascinating. Thanks so much for that. I wonder, are there, in your experience right now, many companies following the approach that you outlined? Where is the sector on this at the moment?
It's a great question. I will say, okay, now we are not in the denial phase. People are realizing that we don't have strategies. Now, at least they're aware, and the vast majority of the industry is realizing that the existing system actually is broken, and we don't have supply chain as the cultural components in this conversation. So they are actually creating now supply chain partnerships with their suppliers, but also some companies are really understanding this. Their future is contingent on the supply chain partners' continuity. And those that really understand how important suppliers are, they are creating partnerships. At this moment, I am not seeing a proper just transition example in the fashion industry. These are at the really early stages in terms of the conversations, starters. But at least now I am seeing that some awareness is there. Also, because of regulations, we are talking about importance of net zero, decarbonization, etc. But here, I want to underline one thing. Regulations are really important and pivotal, but they cannot be seen as thick box exercises. Also, they cannot be seen as the burdens that suppliers must bear. So I'm really inviting the fashion industry, mostly the brands, to share their resources around financial power with their suppliers to make sure this transition is going to be orchestrated with everyone, not just by some people with the requests from the brand. What I am seeing, Ian, is actually there's a huge perception change and also the mindset shift in the industry. But also what is important to me to underline is there's this mismatch between the perception in terms of the purpose. Mostly some brands, I have to say, they are really purpose driven and they don't see their supply chains as the socio-ecological systems, but their suppliers are actually seeing their supply chains as their families because they need to be dependent on their supply chains for their business continuity. So Eileen Fisher is an exemplar, but we really need to scale up these examples to make sure how supply chains should be orchestrated for the benefit for everyone, not just for the brands. So I will say at the beginning of this conversation, which is really interesting, the intentions are there, but it is our responsibility to make sure we will create strategies that will work for everyone in the right way.
Thanks. And keen to hear from Paul and Carmen, their thoughts on that approach and how much they're seeing that in their own work. Paul, I mean, in the brands you're working with, is this sort of socially aware approach, just transition awareness, is that something that you're seeing more now?
I think too little, to be honest. I mean, definitely, it is becoming a subject that is having increased awareness. And obviously, we also try to propagate this. But in the sense that Hakan is mentioning it and looking at it, I think we're far from that.
Sure.
Yeah, no, yeah.
No, thank you. Yes, and Carmen, when you're doing this work at Eileen Fisher, I mean, rightly, Eileen Fisher's done a lot of work in this area and well known for that. How much is your internal approach following the sort of principles that Hakan outlined?
Well, we have, as I previously mentioned, we have a social consciousness team who's fully dedicated to really go deep into the supply chain, pre and post consumer supply chain, to really work collaborative with our vendors, our partners. You know, we have transitioned 2 factories into fair trade. We work with them. And then for the post consumer supply chain, that's something that we're beginning to work with. We haven't like fully implement those principles that Hakan is talking about, like, but we are really starting to talk with the vendors that we work with, you know, in fiber recycling, downcycling, you know, the recycling partners that we work with, you know, we have like these questionnaires, you know, that to see if they meet with our guidelines. But I think we still need to go deeper, you know, because all of this is new for everybody. So we need to start asking those questions right now before it's, you know, it grows out of proportion. Ian, you're muted.
Someone always talks on mute in a webinar. It has to be me. It's my turn today. Thanks very much, everyone, for your questions. We'll get answering them now. If I can ask the panel just to make your answers brief if you can. I'm keen to get through as many questions as we can. So our most liked question so far is a really good one, and it's this. Scaling these types of circular business models are something that lots of brands are struggling to get past the pilot stage. It's the old cliche, pilots never fail, but pilots never scale. So our question asks you, Carmen, how have you done this at Eileen Fisher?
Well, I think the reason why we are growing this initiative is because Eileen has been putting a lot of the resources, you know, on these. Like, she has allowed us to be in this entrepreneurial mode for quite a long time, right? It's until recently that the resale program started contributing to the to the bottom line of the company. Because for Eileen, it's really important to try to reduce waste in the industry. So she's putting the resources and she trusts her, like, you know, her employees to actually drive change internally, and that projects externally too. So I think that's how we've been able to scale, because we are allowed to test quickly and fail quickly. We don't fail, we learn. You know, I don't like the word failing. I'm a woman of action. So whenever we have an idea, we go out and test it very quickly, either with a partner or just, you know, a process or just, you know, sampling. And then that we can learn very quickly if it's going to work or not, right? So I think we have that very entrepreneurial mindset in a larger company, and we're allowed to do that. And we have the buy-in from our new CEO, Lisa Williams. She's very keen into really scaling fiber recycling, you know, the resale program. So I think we have a lot of cheerleaders internally, and we have the budget, right, to work on these.
So I guess it's a prime example of leadership from the top can really drive these things forward.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, Paul, I wonder if you want to comment on that, because given that you're essentially continually developing partnerships and programs with your brand partners, how do you get them to be, you know, successful and long term?
Yeah, so what we always do, and what I think is crucial to indeed get past the pilot stage, is to really define a proper plan on what do we want to learn from this pilot, and when do we find that it's actually successful and ready to scale. So in any pilot that we start with any brand, we really spend a lot of time on defining the key measures for success, and then obviously trying to make sure that all the relevant stakeholders, including senior leadership, are involved and are backing those key success factors, so that over the pilot stage that we start measuring these success factors, that at some point that we hit all of them, then we can clearly say, like, well, this is what we wanted to learn, this is what we wanted to achieve. Now we have continuity or consistency of operations. There's like a higher value of customer satisfaction. We've hit this sort of cost barrier or whatever, and then we can actually push forward to really scale it step by step. And I think even in the scaling phase, it's still really doing it in a phase approach instead of like opening it up to all countries immediately. Even there, we really we try to build it up gradually to make sure that the quality of the service is remains to be on point.
Thanks. Hakan, do you have anything to add on the challenges of getting past pilot programs?
Not really. Carmen and Paul raised really good points, and I would like to keep my time for some other questions.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next question. It's really another really good one. We've had several questions on similar themes, and it's really about internal conversations, convincing colleagues, and also in particular, how you convince colleagues to go for approaches that inevitably perhaps make less money than selling virgin products. Carmen.
Yeah, I actually was gonna add more to the first question, but this is a perfect segue to that. Something that I wanted to be also want to keep it very real, right? This conversation. There's a lot of there's a lot of internal challenges, right? To actually move an idea to action, right? It's not as simple as for Eileen Fisher, it's like, oh, we want to do fiber recycling, let's go for it. There has to do a lot of research, before we even go into from an idea to action, you really have to talk to a lot of people internally and externally, right? What are the potential processes? What are the potential costs? What are the potential resources needed internally and externally? Who are the vendors who can support these ideas? Then we go on and talk to anyone and everybody who could potentially be impacted in this space. And then once we have all of this research and this data, then you start talking to colleagues or to your leaders and be like, hey, this is the idea that I have. This is how much it's going to cost. These are the resources that I need. And these are the potential partners that we have out there. So once you have built a case and then you presented that to leadership, then that you have like a better chance to actually have a yes, go and try it, right? Rather than just you go and kind of like work on your own, say like, this is the idea and I'm going to take it on. Like you have to bring people to this idea. Like you have to bring a community that is on board for that. And that is through, research and, talking and networking with the people in the industry. Yeah.
Thank you. Paul, do you comment on that further? How you engage with your partners when inevitably the returns for these processes are not going to be as great as selling new products?
No, and I can only echo partially what Carmen says. I think it comes down to what I mentioned previously is making very clear what we call the holistic business case. So obviously, if you would look at this from like, okay, if we sell a secondhand product or if we offer a repair, the direct benefit in terms of revenue and profit will be less than selling a new virgin product. Yes, this might be true. Then again, so what we try to do is really provide our key stakeholder with the argumentation and the input to go internally and promote these programs by showcasing that midterm, again, customer lifetime value significantly increases by offering such programs. We have proof of this because we measure it for different brands. Again, product design teams become more efficient and circularity by design is also improved. So we really try to make sure that all the different value points, both financially, commercially, product-based, impact and compliance are crystal clear so that each stakeholder within such a company has at least one argument that they can use to say yes to such a program.
Thank you very much. Hakan, I wonder if you could answer a slightly different question. We're going to, someone's asked about measurement. And I wonder if because measuring social issues is always very difficult.
Yes.
As far as you're concerned, what are the kind of key things to be thinking about when measuring the social impact of these sorts of programs?
Absolutely. But first, can I just take 2 seconds to answer the previous question because it was really important for actually to create some awareness. And social dialogue is the most important principle for just transition. So any successful just transition requires inclusive and representative social dialogues. But the question to ask at this moment is, do we have any dialogue in the fashion industry? Based on my research for the last 14 years, actually the answer is quite minimal. So brands don't talk with their supply chain partners, but also interestingly, brands don't talk internally. From luxury to fast fashion, what I'm realizing is the attachment between the divisions and between the departments, design, purchasing, marketing, operations, they must be in conversations with one another. Without creating this internal consensus, we cannot really talk about supply chain partnership. But now what we are trying to do is to understand how to create external conversations when the industry doesn't have a proper consensus internally. So I invite everyone to actually really understand we need to create governance structures that are plural with everyone, but also what is important, perceptions are different. Especially when we discuss things with supply chain partners, we have a different understanding of things. So brands must be really clear about how they should be understood based on the learnings from their suppliers. What does it mean? It is a huge difference. There's a huge difference between what you think you are and how you are perceived by your partners. So instead of imposing principles or constructs or values, supply chain partners, brands have so much to learn from their supply chains. So that's why communication is really important. But I think the conversation is really must be relational, not transactional. That's why we have to do so much listening. And I invite all the brands to really learn from their supply chain partners. Now, going back to the measures. Supply chain issues are really complicated. Of course, social issues are difficult to quantify. This is the reason we always have this tension between short-term climate goals and long-term societal consequences, because social issues are difficult to quantify and measure. And unfortunately, metrics must be context-specific. It cannot be one size fits all. This is where the industry actually keeps repeating the same mistakes. We create protocols and standardized questions for everyone by assuming that things will work for everyone, but one context is so different than the others. Actually, local supply chains are the future, but it doesn't mean that we will abandon international partners. No, this is the just transition. So we have to work with them to really understand the social ecological impact and also social economic impact that these decisions will be making. We have examples, especially around social KPIs, to understand well-being, how sustainability can help people to flourish. And yes, there are some important well-being indicators that we can adopt, but I just want everyone to understand that those standardized KPIs or standardized tools that we overgeneralize and try to shoehorn in every setting will never work when it comes to social and people-centered transitions.
Thanks very much, Hakan. Quick question for you, Carmen. Have you done an LCA of compares circular or your products involved in your retake program and your original new garments? Have you compared them?
No, we haven't. I believe our partner Trove has done an LCA on resale garments, and I believe it was like 80% savings or 60%. Don't quote me on that. I can get back to you on this, but like they're the ones who have done it. We internally have not done that.
Paul, Hakan, have you heard of it? Hakan.
Can I say something? Because
Sure.
it is an environmental science question, and I'm an environmental engineer. LCAs are really important. They are tools, but what is important to really understand the context and the boundaries in terms of the conditions. So LCA studies can also be quite misleading, and we have evidence to suggest that we just cannot jump on conclusion by some numbers. We need to understand the boundary conditions and the context that they are actually conducted as research samples. So I will ask everyone to actually approach the LCA concept with a pinch of salt, because it can be quite misleading. We have to understand that things cannot be really comparable. We need to make sure the scientific base is quite robust and rigorous. And unfortunately, this is not something that we are seeing a lot in the fashion industry.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. Customer loyalty, another question we've had. A questioner asking, do you see circular business models enabling customer loyalty and any evidence? Paul, what about you? Is that something you talk about when you're bringing your brands on board? Do you talk about the kind of potential for developing customer loyalty?
Yes, absolutely. I think for us and for brands, it should be one of the key drivers to offer this from a business perspective. So we don't only just talk about it, we also measure it together with our brand partners. And what we see a few examples is, for instance, customer satisfaction levels measured on customers who haven't used a circular offering like a renew product or a repair product, and those that have. There's like an uptake in customer satisfaction overall on the brand service or product of like 10 to 20%. We've also measured customer lifetime value of those customers that have used a repair or renew service and those that haven't done that. And then there's a multiple of 3 times higher customer lifetime value between those two. And also in terms of net promoter score ratings, there's also a much higher increase of the customers that use these services compared to those who don't do it. And these are all just numbers. We have like our wall of fame. So we receive many postcards, gifts, thank you notes, drawings, pictures from customers from all brands thanking us, thinking that we are like a part of the brand, thanking us with handwritten notes for the repair so that they can use their garment longer, whether it's their favorite pair of jeans, the jacket so that they can climb the next mountain or whatever. Like we receive so many personal stories. This really exemplifies the way people perceive such a service and how it increases loyalty.
Thank you. Carmen, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, Eileen Fisher is one of the good examples of like customer loyalty, right? Our customers, we always say that we have very groupie customers. They have a lot of Eileen Fisher garments on their closets, and the take back program will not be able to happen if it wasn't for them, right? So they trust that we do something with the garments that they return. Just to give you an example, we don't pay for the shipping for them to return the clothes to us, and sometimes the coupon that we get, that we give them for the garments, is less than the shipping price that they pay for them to send us their garments, right? So that shows that there's like customer loyalty in our program. And also, we give them $5 coupon for the garments. They can get a lot more money somewhere else, right? But they trust that we are very responsible for these clothes. And lastly, it's like, we have only announced 3 times our take back program to the customers. We don't really advertise a lot for them to return it, but they're very much in the weeds of what we do as a brand. But also we talk about our circular initiatives through action, through telling them that we resell the garments, that our special collections, amending, remanufacturing. So again, we're showing them that we are action, right? So that builds trust.
So no marketing, and yet you're still getting 25,000 garments a month. Wow.
Imagine, actually, there was one point on our 10-year anniversary, we did a double rewards. We offered like a $10 coupon. No one was expecting to write such a big check. We got back around like 50,000 garments on a weekend. It was just massive. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I hope you get a big storage facility.
Yeah.
Hakan, I'd like to come to you, a question specifically for you. Why do you think social justice is so much in the background when it comes to developing circular economy models?
I think, Ian, I just lost you for a minute. Can you please repeat the question?
Sure. The question is, why is social justice so much in the background when it comes to developing circular economy models?
It's a great question. I think it's a collective question that we should be asking to everyone in the system. Why? I'm sorry, but because fashion is a really repetitive industry, which is driven by profit maximization and cost reduction, and we are forgetting the workers behind the scenes. My mother was a garment worker, and I know the system quite well because she raised me making garments in our home. Unfortunately, workers are always silenced by the system, not silent, silenced by the power that the industry has. So social justice, it is our task to make, we are asking questions and we are holding companies accountable to talk about their supply chain transparency and supply chain issues. To me, social justice is at the heart of everything. We don't see this happening because, again, long-term change is difficult. and behavioral change is quite difficult. And we are trying to create short-term solutions, and we are always framing things around technology, and then we are claiming things are improving, but actually we don't challenge the underlying business conditions. So to me, it is quite unacceptable that we are not creating these conversations with the people that will be affected by this change. So that's why the fabric of the industry should be challenged.
Thank you. Very, very, very true. Absolutely. Thanks, Hakan. Conscious of time, 10 minutes left. I do want to try to get through as many other questions as we can. Question directly for Paul. It's about your how your business works, actually, your business model. Do your partners consider longevity as part of their brand promise? Or is it the actual, is the kind of the what's driving your business model? Is it the in terms of the pricing of the things that you then resell? Is it, are you making a profit from that, or is it part from the brands and they see it as part of their brand, you know, the overall brand promise?
I don't think I fully understand the question.
No, I didn't say it very clearly, did I? I think the question is basically how do you, I'll boil it down. What's your business model? Where do you make your income?
Right. So that's easy. It's basically it's a combination of two revenue streams. One is per unit revenue on item level. So whether we refurbish, repair, or renew or remake an item, this is like one income stream. And the second income stream is from our technology platform, which is a typical SaaS model. So there's like onboarding and monthly subscription fees. Depending on the brand, it's either paid by the brand itself, so it's a free like for instance Patagonia, who we work with, they offer a lifetime warranty on their garments. So every broken item from a customer comes into us, we repair it within a few days, we send it back. It's all paid by Patagonia. With other brands such as Decathlon, for instance, other price point, or the North Face, it can either be a warranty case. We then charge and invoice the brand, or it can be a paid repair by the consumer if it falls out of warranty specifics, and then they pay for the repair. When it comes to renewing, obviously it's a relationship with the brand. So we refurbish all the items, we invoice the brand, and obviously the brand resells them and receives income from that. So there's different models there.
Thank you very much.
Hope that answers the question.
No, thank you. Well, I hope so too. Was I finally managed to get the question out? Question for you, Carmen. Interesting question. Our question makes the point that regulation changes are going to mean that PET bottles will no longer be used for feedstock in garment sector. So therefore, if the industry is going to continue, there needs to be great growth in garment recycling as feedstock. So, Carmen, how do you think we can persuade ever greater amounts of returning of garments then to satisfy that demand for polyester? I'm afraid you're on mute. I've passed the baton.
I did it. I always do it. Not surprise me. Well, in Eileen Fisher, we actually don't use a lot of polyester, right? So we don't have a lot of kind of like experience and hands-on on recycling poly. But like, I mean, I do agree. I think recycled bottles should stay within that supply chain and not pass into garments, because then they will be the possibilities of those recycled, the garments going back into garments are a lot less than bottle going back to a bottle. So I think it all starts on dissertation, right? We need to, something that we need to scale circularity is like, we need to kind of like streamline a lot of these post-consumer supply chain partners, right? From collectors, sorters, pre-processors, you know, who's responsible for those feedstocks and who owns that, right? So I think, you know, the more vendors that we have in the industry, you know, at the points where there's a lot more waste, aka United States, right? That's when we're going to be able to actually aggregate and collect and distribute to the necessary places who have the technology to process that. The Goodwills are beginning to do that, you know, in collaboration with other companies. You have dbrand, you have Super Circle, all of these new vendors that are actually helping brands to start aggregating. So aggregating is the most important for us to create the volume. and divert to for these to happen. But we're in the early stages, so I think we are slowly but moving to have a more like streamlined post-consumer supply chain for that.
Thanks very much. 5 minutes to go. So quick answers, please. Hakan, question for you. You mentioned behavioral change is key in terms of positivity in circular economy in the long term. Do you have any examples of how this behavioral change and behavioral shift can be pushed amongst consumers?
It's a very, very good question. Yes, absolutely. I think which is also what is interesting is Generation Z is really purpose driven. So we just need to really keep reminding people that health is at the stake. And actually materials that we are using that come from petroleum is not so actually good for our own health. So we need to make sure people are understanding that material quality is so important. And also everything that we are creating in this space must be respectful to the ecosystem and to the people. And I think the purpose is really important. I am seeing this behavioral change, especially in the luxury segment at the moment. People are becoming more and more conscious about the ethics of their choices, which is encouraging. And I think it is really promising. But also, when we look at the indigenous cultures and the global south, there are fantastic grassroots initiatives and movements that we can learn from. And there are so many examples for us to understand how we can become, as a collective, change makers and change agents by also discarding the concept of consumption toward being citizens in this movement.
Thank you.
If I may add there, Ian, because I think obviously it's also about the awareness that there are other options or that there are like other initiatives. But I think if we look at least how we look at it from the repair or reuse perspective, the offering of such a circular offering should be on point or even better than buying something new, right? So both the digital experience or the customer experience should be better or as good as buying something new. And the product itself, the same thing is true, right? So what we try to do in our production facility and with the brands is create unique items in the end and really propagate that. Because if you get a creative repair on your garment, you suddenly have a unique piece instead of something where there's 10,000 items out there. If we do a creative repair, it actually becomes a unique item. So that way people value their repaired or their renewed item higher than it was before. And we get the evidence from this. And that's also why we try to mention and have as a slogan, repair is a new cool, because we really believe that that's the purpose, to make consumers believe that it is actually the better option.
Absolutely. Carmen, do you want to come in on that?
I mean, for us, it's all about the experience the customer has on buying these secondhand garments or like a garments that they're made out of, our clothing. For example, we only do mechanical recycling with the partners that we trust and we know the quality, because our customer is, the first thing that they're going to buy from us is quality and the hand feel, right? So if what we are doing with our garments is not up to par, then what's the point, right? So the wool sweater that we did last year, it was 80% made with our recycled garments and 20% with recycled cashmere. And the quality was there, right? It was actually more costly for us. The margins were lower, but the customer really loved the sweater. So that's, again, the experience and the quality has to be there.
Great, thanks very much. Okay, we're out of time, Hakan, I'm afraid. It's time to wrap up. What I'd like is from each of the panel to give us a very quick thing that you're taking away from the conversation today. Hakan, you can go first, but really quick, please.
Absolutely. Everything is wonderful. I just want to underline production volume is really important to discuss, and we didn't talk about overproduction, so I just want to underline that circularity shouldn't be the tool to legitimize overconsumption. So let's be conscious all together. Thank you very much.
Overproduction was a webinar topic all on its own, perhaps another time. Paul, your thing you're taking away from the conversation today.
Yeah, positive movement forward. Everything I hear here sort of exemplifies for me that we are moving into the right direction, and the crowd is getting bigger in the right direction.
Thanks, Paul. And Carmen?
Partnerships. Partnerships are important for us to grow as an industry and really grow circularity and make it more streamlined.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, we're out of time. My thanks to the panel for their insights and their time today. Really interesting conversation. Thanks so much indeed. And also to you in the audience for all your questions, some really great points and questions coming through. So thank you very much indeed. The issues we've been talking about today will of course be very much part of the conversation next month at this year's Sustainable Apparel and Textiles Innovation Forum series. We'll be in Amsterdam in April and New York City in June. Full details on the Innovation Forum website. Now's a great time to confirm your attendance in Amsterdam in particular. €200 discount for conference participants registering before close on 28th of February. Best price tickets also available for the New York event. So that's in April and June. And you'll be joined by Paul in April and by Carmen in June. For now, I hope you found the webinar useful. We'll be in touch with the recordings in due course. Thanks for joining us and goodbye.